Welcome on another episode of Democracy Innovators Podcast. And our guest of today is Lukas Salecker, co-founder and CEO of deliberAIde. And thank you for your time, for being here.
Hey, Alex, glad to be here.
I see that you have co-founded deliberAIde. And how would you describe this platform software or idea? I don't know.
So before I get into the nitty-gritty of what we're building, which is our platform, let me maybe give a little bit of background of where this idea comes from. So it was around 2 years by now when I woke up in the middle of the night, was Sunday to Monday morning at 4 a.m. And I had this idea to use the power of these recently publicized new technologies of generative AI, for a lot of people known through ChatGPT, and connect that to democratic innovations like citizens' assemblies to help make them better, make them more accessible, make them more scalable. And so that's exactly what we're doing at deliberAIde, to use these generative AI technologies, think about how we can build them into applications that are made for processes like citizens' assemblies or other deliberative processes for different purposes. And the main purpose that we're starting with our platform, or the first version of our platform that we're launching in March and in May, is sense making. How can we help organizers or commissioners of these kind of participation processes to more easily get insights and summaries from the discussions, and also to get better insights from them. And so that's exactly what we're doing in this first version, which on a more technical level starts with recording and transcribing discussions with built-in anonymization to protect people's privacy. Then we take that transcription data, and in the future also other kinds of data around the discussions, like manual notes or pictures of whiteboards, like whiteboard sticky notes, for example. And we use that data to extract contributions that participants made, and to then make sense of these contributions, like what things did they propose, what opinions did they defend, what's like where are similarities across different contributions, in the future also where are agreements or disagreements, and so on. And once the organizers have done this sense making, they can then take their analyses and summaries and also use AI assistants to turn the insights into meaningful reports that can then be passed on to decision makers or the public. And yeah, that's the set of functions that we focus on in the first platform version.
In the past, I was thinking about software for civic participation, and I thought a lot about this automation, about summaries and AI integration, and it's very cool that some tools like this one exist. And I wanted to ask you if you had done some experiment with some group of people, and if is there anything relevant to share?
Indeed. So since we're about to launch our platform, we've been going through quite a bit of testing in real life processes over the past weeks and months. So we have worked with cities and municipalities in Germany, or also next week we're gonna actually do a test at a conference by the European Committee of Regions. And what we can say is that there's really a lot of excitement about what these tools can offer to people who organize these kind of participation processes. To give you one example, we're working with what's called social planners in the municipality of Siegen-Wittgenstein. It's a relatively small town or municipality in the state of North Rhine-Westphalia in Germany. And what these social planners do is they organize a series of conferences where they involve citizens to decide on future social planning, social policy making. And so they have tested our software at various occasions now. They were already excited simply about the possibility to record and transcribe these discussions. But when they saw, for example, how they can go beyond transcriptions and can use AI to extract the ideas that participants shared, to cluster different ideas together, to use our tagging functionality to extract even more specific insights, and all of that on a digital whiteboard. So we developed a digital whiteboard like Miro or Mural, where they can work with the insights and the summaries visually and interactively. The feedback we got from them was that this is exactly like what they need or didn't know they needed, and they really believe that this could help them tremendously in the future, and especially speed up their documentation and reporting processes.
I'm thinking about the last thing you just said, that they didn't know they didn't know that they need the platform, because maybe they were not aware of that some platform like this or that technology could help so much also in political processes. And I was reading the description of deliberAIde, and there is something very interesting. Our mission is to ensure that every voice is heard. And I think this is what is very cool about civic tech, that could allow literally every voice to be heard. And do you think that this platform or like similar platforms in the future could be not just related to some experiment in a town, but really be something that people use every day, and so all the political system eventually will change?
I certainly believe so. That's the vision that drives us. Really believing that if we leverage this new information technology that generative AI is, that we can create spaces that extend way beyond the current political arenas. So right now, political decision-making, political discussions are very confined to, people who've been elected, or people who are members of political parties, or the media, or social media. But all of these current political arenas and spaces have a lot of shortcomings, especially when it comes to who do they include and who do they exclude. For example, to be elected, it takes quite a bit of time, first of all, but then also you need to meet other conditions to actually be elected as a representative and thus partake in the political conversation. And we believe that democratic innovations like citizens' assemblies, and oftentimes also the selection of participants in these mini publics through random selection, so lottery, can help overcome some of these shortcomings of exclusion. But there's still, even within these new democratic innovation processes like citizens' assembly, there's still challenges to overcome. And that's exactly where we believe technology, this new information technology of generative AI especially, can come in to tackle issues ranging from inclusivity to the depth of conversation and quality of dialogue, to scalability and costs of these processes. Just to give some examples, in terms of inclusivity, oftentimes language is still a barrier to participate in citizens' assemblies. And we already know that generative AI is really good at translating. And there are actually startups popping up that help with real-time translation, for example. So that can help bring down barriers to inclusion in conversations in citizens' assemblies. Then depth of dialogue. Currently, even in citizens' assemblies that are well facilitated, you oftentimes only scratch at the surface of underlying conflicts when people have disagreements or conflicting opinions. You don't really have the time and also the insights to actually dig deeper and truly understand why certain conflicts exist in society. And we believe that generative AI and the analyses that generative AI can enable can help us understand conflicts better and thus mediate better between conflicting views. And the third example related to scale would be if you can use like our version 1 platform, for example, for summarization, sense making, reporting in like very quickly in minutes rather than days, you save a lot of costs for organizers, for analysts, for note takers, and that allows you to organize a lot more of these assemblies or organize such assemblies in the first place if you have a very small budget. And a second point related to scale would also be right now to actually organize something like a citizen assembly, like a meaningful deliberative dialogue. You need, most of the time, to do it well, you need professional moderators, but there's a scarcity of professional moderators. So we believe in the future, with AI, we could empower participants to self-moderate, for example. There are already some experiments in that direction underway. Stanford online deliberation platform, first and foremost. And but we believe we can do better. We can use AI to help create AI moderation assistants that can truly understand a conversation and nudge it in the right direction to make it constructive. And that will allow for scaling or multiplying these kind of processes by the thousands, and thus help to include many, many more people than currently is the case in an average citizen assembly, which normally is only around 100 to 150 people.
I share with you the excitement about AI agents that moderate, because I really agree with you that good moderators are not. There are not a lot of good moderators, and yeah, AI agents could help a lot. And I'm thinking about scalability. I mean, about participation. Like, is there anything that you were thinking could stimulate user to participate? Like, I'm thinking about some gamification system, or like people just participated when you did experiments in. I mean, with the experiment that you have done now, like in some towns, with some institutions, people just participated, or they received some kind of, I don't know.
Yeah. So I'm actually a bit cautious with attempts to incentivize participation that are more on the technical side, like gamification, for example. So I'm not sure if they're really the solution. I think that there need to be other incentives that are more on the process side for people to want to participate. And I think a lot of times what actually prevents people from participating is not that participation is boring and therefore you need to gamify it to make it more exciting, but there are more structural barriers in place, like people just next to their job, or sometimes more than one job, just not having the time to go to an event like that in the evening on a work day, or they're too exhausted to go and participate in a process like the social planning process I just talked about on the weekend. They may also have other responsibilities like caretaking that simply can't afford to participate. And so then in order to tackle those, we also need to put structural solutions in place. For example, in big citizens' assemblies, like the Citizen Assembly on Nutrition by the German Parliament last year and 2023, 2024, and that's also the case in other assemblies, people get paid a small amount, but at least they get some form of compensation so that they can participate. And in the future, we need to go beyond that. So they don't just need to get paid like 100 euros per day or something, but they actually need to be able to get freed from their jobs for the time they participate in such processes. If you think it even more long term, why shouldn't someone who participates in a citizen assembly be almost equally compensated to an elected representative? So they are representatives, after all, that take time to deliberate on an issue, to inform themselves. It's hard work. So why should they only get like 100 euros per day if they do almost the same work as elected representatives? And so I believe these are structural solutions to structural problems that prevent participation nowadays, that are more on the process side rather than the technical side.
I agree with your analysis, and I would like to ask you if you want to share some of your personal background, eventually also starting from when you were a child.
So starting all the way back from when I was a child, I think might be a bit boring and long, but I can start at like quite pivotal moment or time in my life, which was almost like half my life ago, around 15 years, which is when I was 16. And before I was 16, I grew up in a small town in Germany. I'd actually never left Germany until then. And so you could say I grew up in quite the bubble. But when I was 16, I had the privilege to actually go on an exchange here abroad in Mexico for 1 year. To go to high school there for a year, learn the language, get to know the culture, meet new people, extend my horizons. And extending my horizons, it truly was. It's because it literally burst this bubble of privilege that I grew up in, because it was the first time when I got this outside view of where I grew up in Germany, in Europe, in the global north, and made me realize, well, how unequal the world actually is, and also how unfair the world is, which makes the world so unequal. And so since then, you can say, well, retrospectively, I call it the moment when I found my purpose, or the time when I found my purpose in life, because it really motivated me since then to keep trying to learn and study and educate myself, and find the work so that I could do something against these inequalities and against these injustices that I had first seen when I was in Mexico for that year. And this kind of purpose only got reinforced over the past 15 years whilst I was studying why these inequalities exist. I had other chances to live abroad, also in other countries of the so-called global south, where I saw even more starker inequalities and injustices at work. And for a long time, I thought I might want to help tackle these problems as a development worker. So kind of working for the United Nations, working for the World Bank, and you name those institutions, German Development Agency. But eventually I realized, okay, I don't think, well, that hasn't been working for 70, 80 years now since development cooperation started. And it's probably not going to work because there are other bigger structural issues in place, power inequalities especially. So actually, we need to look at ourselves in the global north, in Europe, in the West, and think about, okay, how are we actually preventing other countries around the world, especially in the so-called global south, from pursuing their own visions and ideas of a better future? We have been kind of imposing our idea of how societies ought to look like, which we call development, and we've been trying to promote that through development cooperation. But I think that's the wrong approach. And so what I realized eventually around the time I was studying my master's, we need to look at our own systems, at our own economic systems, and at our own political systems in Europe, in the West, in the global North, and think about how do they suppress systematically, and how do they take away space for others to truly flourish and pursue their own visions of the future. And so I started to study things like degrowth, ideas like degrowth, post-growth. How can we transform our economic systems to make them more ecological and social? And eventually, then I realized, okay, well, we probably also need to change our political systems to achieve this kind of deep economic transformation. And so then I became interested in deliberative democracy, because essentially deliberative democracy is about redistributing political power to ordinary people. And I truly believe that this is what's needed to achieve the profound transformations that we need to make our economic, political systems, our societies more ecological, more just, more social. And that's what led me to my passion for deliberative democracy, and then eventually 2 years ago, kind of connecting that passion to how can we use technology to enhance these new forms of democracy.
Would you like to share some of your academic or professional background?
Yeah, so I studied, broadly speaking, political science or political economy. So I did a bachelor's in liberal arts and sciences, global challenges, that's how it was called, in the Netherlands at Leiden University College. And that it was a very open, interdisciplinary bachelor's where I could really choose my own focus from a lot of options that I was given. And I decided to focus broadly on economics, on international development, and on governance. And in my master's, I then decided to do development studies, partly because I was still thinking about becoming a development worker, but also because I really wanted to understand this idea of development, and I wanted to critically engage with it. And I did that in the UK at the University of Oxford. And what was really special about that master's was that it takes a step back and critically questions this whole concept of development. And I was very glad that I did this master's, because, as I just explained, it really led me to question the whole idea of development, and then start to focus more on what can we actually do in Europe, in the West, in the global North.
Yeah, I also had the impression that, sometimes cooperation, it can be in a way, cooperation not as a word, not cooperation that can be done by me, you, and someone else, but related to NGOs. And sometimes it could seem like a sort of neo-colonization in some way. So I share some of the doubts about if that is the solution. And I also agree about all the you use the structure many times, like also before, and I totally agree. Like there are some structural problems. There is some violence that is structured in our society, and we can try to change it in some way with these new tools. And I see also, talking with the other guest, that there are basically two ways. One is to take the democracies that we have right now, and we just put some AI, some automation, some transcriptions tool, and we try to make them more efficient. Or the other way is to find new solutions completely different from the past. And I think that deliberAIde is on this second way. So you're trying to find new solutions for people to be able to decide and to talk. And I was reading about peer parliaments. Is it? It seems connected in a way, or not?
Very, very good. Yes, actually it is. I just realized I also forgot to answer the second part of your previous question on my professional background. So I mean, it's not a very long professional experience that I have. Only around 4 years now, and 2 of that has been deliberate. But right after my master, I actually started working in organizing citizen participation at a company called EFOC, which is a German company that's one among the European market leaders, you could say, in organizing citizens assemblies and other participation processes. And I worked there for half a year. And during those 6 months, I actually helped organize what's called the peer parliaments that you just mentioned. And that was a process or organized on behalf of the European Commission to involve European citizens in EU climate policy making. And what I think was special about this is that this was one of the first times, and not the first time, that a high-level political institution organized a distributed, deliberative participation process. And what does that mean? So basically, European citizens were asked to organize small-scale discussion groups, or you could also call them house parliaments, where they invited their friends or neighbors or colleagues gathered at home or at a bar or at a community center to discuss different topics related to EU climate politics. And at the end of their discussions, they were asked to take a decision on what recommendations they want to make to the European Commission, what to change about certain aspects of EU climate politics. And they submitted those recommendations back to us, who organized these processes. In total, there were, I think, around 500 or 600 parliaments organized throughout the whole of Europe. So there were around 500 participants. And I thought that was really new, because instead of saying, like what has happened a lot of times over the past 10 years, here's an online participation platform, just go and have just like comment on others' ideas on an online participation platform. They really localized these processes by and decentralized the processes by asking people to organize discussions at home, like real-time, face-to-face discussions. And I think that's really crucial, because what's missing in mass online participation is this very essential human element and the human connection and the ability to look each other in the face, see each other's emotions and mimics and gestures, and very importantly, hear each other's stories. All of that is missing on online participation platform. And it's also missing on social media. And I believe it's also part of the reason why social media is so polarizing, because people are not looking into each other's eyes when they discuss. But in these peer parliaments, they preserve this essential element by focusing on the small scale and interpersonal discussions. But then they scaled that by multiplying these small scale deliberative discussions, which eventually allowed several thousands of people to participate. And so where's the connection to what I'm doing right now? In a way, that's a part of the vision that drove me to start deliberAIde, and that's driving us at deliberAIde. Because back in the days when I organized the peer parliaments, I had to manually sort through and summarize and analyze all the submissions that we got back from participants. And I can tell you it was a mess, and it was not good, and it was hard work, a real pain. And it did not do justice to the nuance and multidimensionality that their discussions probably contained. But I think with generative AI, we can really use that information technology to, first of all, do more justice to the complexity of discussions that people are having in such distributed processes. And second of all, I think there's also a possibility to interconnect the different discussions. On the peer parliaments, the House parliaments, they were isolated. They took place isolated, in isolation from each other. There was no exchange of information between them. But I think we can use generative AI to cross-pollinate between them. And that's actually what Elaine Launer-Moore in one of her articles called multiple rotating mini publics. And that's really an idea that's been quite inspiring for me and kept me going, because I believe like that we can really scale small scale conversations to thousands or even hundreds of thousands of people, and thus get back the essence of what makes for good political conversations, but at the same time allowing masses to participate in the conversation.
This will be awesome. And I think about polarization. In a way, I mean, talking with someone that has a different ideas from us. It's what is needed to not be polarized. But sometimes we are used to think like in a sort of binary way. So if you think in a different way from me, I do not talk to you. And so I see this kind of software very useful. And I was wondering, because about the platform. So it can be used by different users. So institutions, political parties, I think, NGOs, I don't know. And is there any difference related to the use? I mean, how would they use the software, or like would it work in the same way for every kind of entity?
So right now in this first version, it's really mainly targeting, we call them organizers, as opposed to like every participant or like an ordinary participant in the process. But for organizers, like no matter if they're part of a political institution, political party, municipality, or even within a company, it's all the same. So there's one interface. Like sure, there are like different roles, different access. Like there may be admins, there may be facilitators, there may be project managers, but essentially it's the same. Everybody has access to the transcription, to the sense making, to the reporting. But yeah, participants at this point, unless they are self-organizers, will not interact much with the platform itself. They will mostly see kind of interim results, like clustered ideas, or the final reports that have been created with the platform.
Have you thought about collectivization of problems? Because it's something that I mean, I was not thinking about this question when I was preparing the interview, but it's something that I thought about also now. Because sometimes, I don't know, a person has a problem. I make this example. I don't know. I always fight with my brother. And I can think that is an individual problem. I mean, it is my fault or my brother's fault. But then I don't know if in the town everyone fight with his or her own brother or sister. In a way, is a sort of social problem. And I think that nowadays it's very hard to be aware of these kind of problems. But using this kind of tools, as you said, we could have small discussion groups, and then have all the problems that goes in a summary made by AI, and so then people can be aware of a certain problem that they were not. So,
indeed, yeah, I think there's real potential to like move the conversations back from kind of private spaces, like I fight with my family at home and everybody fights with their family at home, or I don't know, neighbors fighting with each other, like, but in a more private space, and also from what has become the main public square these days, social media, and also more traditional media, and take those conversations back from these two spaces, because they have their issues, and really try to create a new public square, or actually not a new one, but get back the old ones in a way. It's kind of back to the future, because we used to be able to have these conversations before social media, before mass media, and I think we just need to get back to that. And yeah, we really believe that generative AI and other emerging technologies can help with that.
And I wanted to ask you, what is the actual state of the platform? Like, I know that is working in some way because you have done a test with municipalities and other institutions. But I'm wondering right now, I mean, what are you working on? Is there also if is there any problem that you're stuck on, any skill that you're searching for? Maybe someone that listen to the podcast can say, okay, maybe I can help on that.
So we are still working on developing the first version. So there are some features that are already quite advanced and that we have tested, especially around sense making. But there are other features that we still have to fully flesh out, like the final reporting, for example. And we are also working on making our platform more stable and scalable. So far, our sense making only allows for summarizing individual discussion sessions. But one thing that we're actually tackling as we speak is to also make sense of discussions across sessions. So compare different sessions with each other and find similarities, differences, and so on. What are we struggling with? I think a lot of the challenges are in the details. So it's very easy to produce something that works 80% well, but to actually make something reliable and accurate, like summaries, for example, and 95% of the time, and to make that fast and secure and protect data privacy in the process, that's the real challenge. So anyone who knows how to make LLM systems reliable, evaluate them systematically, working on knowing how to do prompt optimization, interested in data protection, so like anonymization before using LLMs. That would be very helpful. And so please get in touch.
Was it expensive to build such platform, or like are there relevant costs? I mean, I think about the transcription, the use of AI, the analysis of the transcription, and was it challenging in a way to find the foundings money to build the platform? I don't know. Also, if you are working full time on this project, or if you have a side job, and also how many people are involved in the team, like this money side that makes everything a little bit difficult, as I've heard also from other people interviewed.
Definitely. So actually, the technical side of building it was not expensive at all. I think our technical costs, like, LLM costs, hosting costs, and you name them, they're below $1,000. So really not expensive at all. But that doesn't figure in all the like human labor costs, because my 7 co-founders and I, we've been working completely for free for 2 years now. Some of us full-time, most of us next to their PhDs or studies or full-time jobs. So had we figured in all of the costs, labor costs, then it would probably have been much more expensive. And you named the key challenge, which is to find funding for this kind of project. So we're in a little bit of a tricky in-between situation where so we are a startup and very purposely decided to become like a business and not an NGO, because we wanted to be independent. We wanted to be independent from public or philanthropic funding. We wanted to generate our own revenues that we could reinvest in furthering our mission. But we are a non-profit startup, so that does not really attract big funders, because we will structurally make it impossible to get to privatize profits from what we do. We want to reinvest all our revenues, all our profits into the mission, and that puts us in a very difficult place, because it makes it hard to apply for public funding, like grants. And we've been rejected from a lot of them, I can tell you. And at the same time, it also makes it hard to attract more conventional investors, for example, like VC capital, how you call it in business speak, because they are looking for more returns on their investment that we just can't give them and don't want to give them. However, we've been quite lucky to have quite a few supporters throughout, after all. So despite all the rejections we got, only needs like a handful of people or organizations that believe in you. And so we, like from very early on, we gained the support of Oxford University Innovation and their startup incubator. And they actually gave us a bit of funding as well, that allowed us to, cover some costs. And recently we got the German government startup scholarship, which is called Exist. And that's starting from April, and that will actually allow 3 of us to start working full-time with a monthly scholarship, and also quite a bit of additional funding to cover other costs like development, for example. And that will really be a game changer for us, because it's been a long and rough 2 years.
Yeah, it doesn't seem easy, and it is quite crazy. I mean, because I think that this kind of solution, I mean, in a way, I don't know, in the future could really avoid, something bad. They could eventually avoid wars, civil wars. I mean, we forget about all that. But it was very common for people in the past to just sometimes kill each other. And I think that this is one of the most important things, like politics, and understand why people participate, and make the process easier for all people to participate. And I wonder, like, collaboration in civic tech, like, do you think, have you had the collaboration with other, platforms, or do you think that this will be important?
100% for sure. Very important, and we have had only good experiences so far. So it's probably like from the perspective of established organizations like, Go Vocal, Make.org, Decidim, Consul. I'm not sure how often, probably more often than we think, like people with new ideas come along and try to do something in the space. And well, to some extent, like if you thought about it conventionally, like in conventional economic competition terms, then the big or established players, they probably wouldn't welcome you with open arms, and they might be skeptical, like what are these people doing, like are they a threat to us? That's what you would think conventionally, I guess. But in this space, in the civic tech space, I've only experienced the opposite. So really, all of them, all the ones that I named and more, just really welcoming us with open arms and being interested and curious in what we do, and not just interest, but actually also like proactive support, like realizing, okay, we are really covering a new niche. We're not exactly doing the same thing. So they thought, okay, this can enrich the ecosystem, so let's help them. And that transpired in invitations, in people at these established organizations telling their clients, their partners about us, which then led to important partnerships for us. Just generally multiplication, talking about us, helping us gain more visibility. So that has been very helpful for us. Generally, also, we've been very welcomed by the Civic Tech Association, for example, even though we don't have any resources right now to contribute to become a member, but still they welcomed us. And very recently, actually, 2 weeks ago, at the OECD Co-Creation Bootcamp in Lisbon on using emerging technologies for civic participation, we also cooperated with other startups like ourselves, DemBrain, Harmonica, to create a new solution for AI consultation analysis. And also that was only a positive experience. You might think, okay, these startups are doing very similar things, so they're our competitors, and admittedly, these are also thoughts that had previously crossed my mind, and because it is really similar what we're doing. But then just experiencing that cooperation can actually lead to new solution and to kind of broadening the market, so to speak, was a really great experience. And I think for me that was a reinforcement that collaboration always wins over competition, because at the end of the day, everybody benefits if the field grows, if the industry grows, if the market grows. And ultimately, what's most important, democracy benefits, because that's what we're all here for. We all have the same mission. Yes, we all need to make our revenues to sustain ourselves, but at the end of the day, we want to strengthen democracy. And I think that only goes through cooperation and not competing with each other.
I also had the impression that the things that you have said, that in some other field, someone that does something similar to you is a competitor, while in this specific field, he or she became a collaborator. And this is awesome. And so deliberAIde is a sort of standalone platform, and I think also the same about Harmonica, while deliberAIde is more modular. Have you had any thought about this? Because I see that everyone is building new platforms. That is basically a different approach. So I wonder if you thought also about an integration with deliberAIde or like something like this.
Definitely. So first of all, we are thinking midterm, long term of deliberAIde also as a more of a modular platform. We're getting started with one module right now, but we want to make it multi-modular in the future. And that means being open to other tools integrating with ours, or our tool integrating with other tools. especially when they're complementary. And I think that's really the case for Decidim, for Consul, for Harmonica as well. Participation processes are very complex and multi-step, and I think we are covering a different. We're focusing on a different step in the process than, for example, Decidim and Harmonica are. We would really love to have conversations with Decidim, but also other providers of online participation platforms, because I think they can be, for example, a great step before citizen assembly for agenda setting, for instance, or afterwards for disseminating results. Similar to Harmonica, it could serve a function like getting a first impression of what are the most contentious issues that could then be deepened in something like the citizen assembly. And so what does that mean concretely for us? Well, we're thinking of the design of our platform in the long term as modular, and we're also thinking about open source. We still have to make our minds up about the exact open source strategy that we want to pursue, but these are discussions that we're having. And I think what's also often not talked about enough is interoperability. So kind of our outputs, our output formats, integrating with other platforms' inputs formats, and the other way around, other platforms' output formats integrating with our input formats, so that they can seamlessly be integrated, and different modules from different platforms can be connected and tailored to the exact uses and needs in real-life processes.
About interoperability, do you know if right now is there any kind of protocol for API related to civic tech? Because it's something that I was thinking recently, that maybe there should be some kind of protocol. So if I want to build a new platform, I already know how to build it.
Right. So to be honest, I haven't done a lot of research on this yet. So I can imagine that there's some attempts to do it, but I haven't come across them. What I know though is that MetaGov, for example, which I believe has also funded Harmonica and I think also a recent GoVocal project. Their recent funding call was also about interoperability. I'm not familiar with the outcomes. Haven't looked into that, but yeah, I see people to start talking about it. I've also had conversations about it with the Civic Tech Association. So there are attempts to get to that point.
Yeah, I've also I've seen that there is some movement inside MetaGov about interoperability, because right now there are many tools, and so it will be very cool to integrate all of them. And if you have some more minutes, I have a couple of questions.
Go for it.
So if someone has an idea related to civic tech, to participation, how could that person start the project? How it was for you? How did it start?
So I know it's a bit of a cliche, but it's true. I didn't believe it before I did it myself either. I was more of a planner. But the main kind of recommendation is to just get started. Start talking about it, and start doing. Stop endlessly planning and then not implementing. Just get started somewhere. And the great news is that nowadays, it's because of AI, it's become 100 or 1,000 times easier to get started. There are tools out there that we're also using internally at deliberAIde that can help you prototype in like a minute. So you have an idea, go to v0.dev by Vercel, and within a minute you have a functional prototype of your idea. It might need a few iterations to actually make it nice, but an hour later you actually have something that you can show to people, and that will help you explain your ideas better. And then if you want to take it further, there are even tools nowadays for actual software development and web development and so on. And I myself, I knew literally zero about AI before I started this. The first time I ever started engaging with AI was ChatGPT. Before that, I had just been completely ignorant of it. But then ChatGPT really showed me the potential of it. And well, I realized, okay, this is powerful. And then I started learning more about it. I started playing around with it. I did a boot camp in machine learning and data science for 3 months, just to get the basics, understand the basic concepts. How does AI, how do neural networks work, and so on. But to be honest, if you don't have access to a boot camp, like in my case, paid by the employment agency in Germany, you can find a wealth of resources and materials online. There are websites where you can do courses. One great example is deeplearning.ai. Excellent courses, very beginner friendly, to just start familiarizing yourself with these more tech things that how to say, the more tech side of your idea. But then you can get started in no time. I am not a developer. I still don't know how to code, but I can use AI right now to actually code or develop. And I think that has just lowered the entry barrier tremendously for anyone who has a great idea. So start doing would be the first part of the recommendation, and start talking about it. The second one might actually be even more important than the first one, because if you don't talk about your idea, nobody will ever know about it. And most importantly, nobody will ever come and help you with it. So no matter how basic and unrefined and flawed your first initial idea is, start talking about it. I know it's not easy. It requires a little bit of courage. But if you don't believe in your idea enough to talk about it, then maybe you might not want to start it in the first place. But if you do believe in your idea enough to talk about it, then go and talk about it. Because then others will get inspired so much that they will actually want to join you and help you create this. And I can tell you, for me, over the past 2 years, it has been one long, beautiful, very humbling and honoring experience of talking about it, and then people joining and giving support and making it their own idea. And that's at the end of the day what I can recommend to you. Start doing and start talking about it.
Yeah, as we say, the people here really want to collaborate. So talking about your idea and network with other people, I think is essential, even more than in other field, maybe, because of this specific collaboration. And do you have any message for the people that are working on this kind of tools, that are experimenting with in the civic tech field, in the democracy field? Something that you would like to share?
Well, for other fellow civic techers or deliberative techers, let's continue collaborating and expanding our collaboration. I think all of us can only benefit from it. And for people working in more on the process side of democratic innovation, so people organizing citizens assemblies, people organizing dialogue forums, town halls, and so on, be skeptical of the dangers of these technologies, for sure. But also don't let this skepticism dominate the conversation, because there's so much potential in using these technologies for good, and especially in this context, that it would be a shame if all we ever kept talking about was the dangers of it. Let's shift the conversation. Let's not forget about the dangers, but let's shift the conversation to what we can really use these technologies for. because every technology can be used for good and bad, for bad and good, that way around. And that's especially the case in democratic innovation.
Thank you. Thank you a lot for your insight, for the conversation. And if you have anything that you would like to add that maybe I didn't ask, or otherwise I ended all the questions.
Well, thank you very much, Alessandro. Go to our website, www.deliberAIde.com, or if you want to stay in the loop on what's going on, follow us on LinkedIn. Connect also with me on LinkedIn if you'd like to collaborate. And on the website, you also will soon find in the next few days a waitlist. So if you are an organizer who's interested in using our tools as a pilot partner right now, or as a user from May onwards, sign up to the waitlist and you will receive all the information about launch and any other updates firsthand.
Thank you again.
Thank you.